how lucky are we to be alive at this moment in history?
There is no better time to be alive in the trajectory of the entire human history.
We're living in a time when our reach is far beyond the boundaries of our planet.
If you have higher exposure to robotics or artificial intelligence, you are less likely to be involved in the church, to believe in God, or to be religious or spiritual in general, is what these findings are actually saying. AI is a tool, it's not a replacement, and AI has yet to quantify very nuanced things like human emotion.
Our decision today will shape the course of history for generations to come.
We need a more nuanced AI because the way that we exist and perceive things don't only exist in black or white.
It's essential for us to embrace change, stay curious, and keep exploring what makes your heart sing. Ultimately, your path to human flourishing is unique. Hello. Welcome to Emergence Now. My name is Dhiren and I'm joined by my co-host, Nikos Acuna. Nikos, how are you?
What's up, bro? Get a good run in this morning?
I did. So with this switcheroo, I'm having to shuffle my morning slightly, and I'm trying to find the right rhythm.
Good for you.
To my mornings with the show.
Awesome.
So one of the things that was on my mind this morning is how lucky, Nikos, how lucky are we to be alive at this moment in history?
There is no better time to be alive in the trajectory of the entire human history. So yes, I would argue this is the best time to be alive. that often lingers in the back of my mind, right? Beneath the struggle, the hustle, the bustle of our daily lives, if we just take a moment to truly ponder, I've started to realize that the era that we find ourselves in is unlike any other, right? We stand now at the intersection of the past and the future, right here in the present. We have access to the accumulated knowledge of the millennia, right? We have access to all this information, the wisdom of the ages and the innovations that have propelled humanity forward. So we are now living in a time when our reach is far beyond the boundaries of our planet, right? We recently landed on the dark side of the moon. We're, exploring the cosmos and unlocking the mysteries of the universe. But, with all this power comes responsibility, right? As the saying goes. So as we bask in the glory of these technological advancements and the conveniences of modern life, we must also grapple with the challenges that accompany, that come with them, right? And our decision today will shape the course of history for generations to come. I know it's a big statement, but it really resonates with me when I think about how lucky we are. I mean, we're so fortunate to be living in this time. It's very exciting. And there are many possibilities and perils that lie ahead, which is why it really comes down to us, right? It always has and always will come down to our ability to adapt, a mindset that is timeless and that's forward thinking. Absolutely. I think you said something very poignant because we don't live in an age of cholera or smallpox, even though we do have COVID. We have advanced technologies to better our lives. The supercomputers in our pockets are a better telecommunication device than only the president and heads of state had just 30 years ago, right? So everything is becoming democratized. So people have clean running water and they have internet connections, and soon they'll have access to all of these different things that will pave the way for abundance.
which is not to say that we still have a bunch of challenges ahead of us, but it's really a better time than we've ever had before for all the reasons that you said. So I do truly feel like we're going through another renaissance and another period of enlightenment. And in this case, it'll be digital enlightenment.
All right, so let's take a moment to just discuss what's going on in the news. I mean, it seems like AI is back in the news, and the White House is getting involved. Did you catch that article that I shared with you about the White House making commitments for AI companies, saying that it's not enough and they need to double down on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. They will continue to play catch up. So this was in AI News. We'll go ahead and throw the link in the comments section over here. But essentially, the Biden-Harris administration secured more commitments from 8 more AI companies. And these companies include Adobe, Cohere, IBM, NVIDIA, Palantir, Salesforce, Scale AI, and Stability. It's really a much broader initiative that the administration is working on as an executive order, and it's bipartisan legislation, so it's a good thing. But the goal here is to lead in responsible AI development by essentially maximizing and managing a lot of those risks, right? So the pillars of commitment here are ensuring AI product safety before a company launches with the new LLM architecture, and they have to go through rigorous internal and external security testing for this. They have to prioritize AI system security. So that's the protection of proprietary and unreleased model weights. So you can't just go ham on the internet and all of this customer data. You have to cultivate public trust. So they're basically saying the right things. Whether or not it could be implemented is still, the jury's still out on that, to be perfectly honest, from my perspective. There's public reporting on these AI systems capabilities and limitations. So there's going to be a lot more QA. There's going to be a lot more rigors to that. And then obviously when you're creating applications for the greater good, the vision here is for AI to contribute to global prosperity, equality, and security, which is essentially what we're going to talk about here, which is a part 2 about human flourishing. In the first part of this, we discussed individual human flourishing. We talked about flow, but then now we'd love to get into the macro cosmic aspects, the collective intelligence, how humanity can flourish at a much deeper scale. But that is, of course, if everybody participates in a very collective way, right? So yeah, it's an interesting topic. Let's see what they do with it. It was kind of lukewarm, from my opinion. So it was kind of like, okay, you're saying all the right things, but obviously execution and implementation is going to be the mark of success here.
Yeah, and enforceability. How do you really enforce this, right? I think that's the biggest challenge with these commitments is how do you enforce it, and who is really in the room? From what I'm seeing, it's the big tech, right? That's in the room, and that gives you one perspective. But what about the startup? What about the mid-sized company that is trying to get a foothold in this space, and maybe their intentions are a lot more, they're a lot more aligned with privacy groups and people like us who want to make sure that we have sovereignty over our data.
Absolutely.
So you're right. It's going to be interesting to see. Before we jump in, there was another article that you shared with me about the decline. This was really interesting. The decline of religion in the age of AI.
That's right. That's right. So the World Values Survey, they basically conducted this massive longitudinal study between 2007 and 2019. And what they found was the importance of God declined on average in 39 of the 44 countries that they analyzed.
Wait, say that again. Say that again. Say that again.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. And I dug into the entire paper and research study, and all of the data is available. We will also throw that link in the comments below. So this study was conducted between 2007 and 2019. And the result was that the importance of God declined on average in 39 of the 44 countries analyzed. So what that really means is religiosity has gone down across the board, but it's not necessarily for the things that we think. Obviously, technology could be attributed to it, just having a more scientific mindset and culture. But the percentage of people identifying as non-religious has risen by more than 10% in nations like Singapore, Iceland, Chile, and South Korea over the past decade. But it's really most striking in the United States, right? Between 1940 and 2000, it says that church membership hovered around 70%, according to this other study by Gallup. But as the new millennium got underway, it really just fell off a cliff. So by 2020, church membership had cratered to 47% between 2007 and 2020. And they could attribute it to technological advancement. And they also found that people with jobs that were one standard deviation higher on the mean on occupational exposure to AI were 45% less likely to believe in God compared to people in occupations that had a mean level of exposure to AI. So if I could sum all of that up, it just means that if you have higher exposure to robotics or artificial intelligence, you are less likely to be involved in the church, to believe in God, or to be religious or spiritual in general, is what these findings are actually saying.
Wow, very interesting. What's the counter argument to this? I mean, it's also worth noticing that the article you provided, that you mentioned, it is a single study, right?
Yeah.
Is it a single study?
It's actually five studies, and five studies that they combined into one longitudinal study.
So we'll definitely share that in the show notes and continue to dig into this study, which I find to be fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, you were asking about the counter argument?
The counter narrative, yes.
The counter narrative. Okay. So I think first it would help to talk about the why to this, right? So why are people less likely to believe in God? And there are several approaches to this, right? Anthropomorphism is one. Humans have a tendency to ascribe human-like qualities to non-human entities. This has been going on for quite some time. And this is like a natural phenomena. We've been doing this with animals, deities. And of course, as AI and robots become more advanced, people might anthropomorphize them. So that's one. Problem solving is a huge one. When people are faced with challenges beyond our comprehension or our ability, many naturally turn to religion or supernatural beliefs with these types of explanations. But now with advanced AI and robotics capable of solving a lot of these problems, we don't really need this kind of anomalous type of belief beyond human ability, because the problems could essentially be solved with science, right? And now there's kind of this perceived omnipotence such that advanced AI systems can process vast amounts of information, predict outcomes, or even create art or music. There's this notion of existential reflection. Engaging with advanced AI might lead to individuals to reflect on more existential questions. So they feel things, but then now they ask more existential questions like, what really differentiates me as a human than from a machine, right? And as this evolves, there's also a shift in miracles. So people don't put as much credence to ancient religious texts as they do in core science, because it's more observable and they actually get to experience the results of these scientific findings firsthand. And then, of course, there's less dependency on the unknown and faith-based approaches, again, because of scientific reason. But that's not to say that we should put all of our faith in science. I do believe that there is a counter argument to this, to your earlier point. I think that because of the fact that we have all of these advanced technologies, and to your point, it's the best time to be alive, there's more of an affirmation of the divine than ever before, right? The very fact that humans can create such advanced technologies like AI is a testament to the incredible faculties that we have as individuals. Now it opens up the question for moral and ethical guidelines and guidance. As AI and automation become more integrated into our lives, there's going to be numerous moral and ethical challenges that we face here. There's a better opportunity for dialogue. There's a deepening that some will have in their own faith, basically encountering challenges to what the reading in the scriptures posed by technological advancements. Now they can this can lead to a deepening of one's belief and a reinterpretation and renewal of that same belief. But obviously, what I've been saying before, and I'll reiterate it, is that AI is a tool. It's not a replacement. And AI has yet to quantify very nuanced things like human emotion, the taste of chocolate, how love feels like when I kiss somebody on the lips, things like that, that's just very hard to put in computational vectors. But pretty soon we'll get to that place as well. But I wouldn't hold my breath. All of these foundational things that are guideposts for spirituality are still as critical as ever. So to your point, I'm glad you brought that up. I would lean toward the positive affirmation, toward a faith-based approach and foundational spiritual approach, and not rely and put too much faith in the science of it all.
Yeah, this reminds me, I just had to look up Einstein's famous quote: "Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind." And something you said really struck a chord in me, which is, I grew up in a religious, actually, I take that back. I grew up in a spiritual background, and, it was very much blind faith, right? And over the last few years, I've started going into the science of spirituality, or just the science of the nature of, the world, and how we interact with it, and the nature of reality, and how reality is created. And as I understood the science, it actually deepened my belief and my conviction in spirituality. So that's a great point, and something that really resonates with me. So we're talking about human flourishing, right? And technology, and the confluence of technology and humanity. And really, this sits at the heart of humanity. Because if there's this decline in religion, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because some people argue that religion can be a force for division and conflict, right? And if that's in decline, then it could lead to a more peaceful and more tolerant world, right?
Hey there. We're taking a quick break from the show to let you know that if you'd like to invite Dhiren or Nikos to speak at your next event on topics ranging from emergence and the inner game to the future of AI, we've got you covered. Simply email us at info@emergencenowpod.com. Once again, that's info@emergencenowpod.com. Now, let's dive back to the show.
So in the digital space, how can we ensure that the march of technology aligns and amplifies our ability to be human, our potential to connect, our potential to really be more peaceful and more tolerant? Because that's what human flourishing is underpinned by. That's one of the key tenets of human flourishing.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I could even connect the dots back to what the Biden administration is doing, or at least posits or aims to do from an intent standpoint, which I think is positive overall. So connecting the dots in human flourishing with the age of AI, obviously, first and foremost, it's about principles of safety, security, and trust, which really resonates with a lot of our conversations on human flourishing here in the digital age. And it's about ensuring that AI systems are aligned with these principles so that we can amplify human potential, navigate the challenges of all of these things that are happening in the digital era. Technical evolution, which I'll get into, in terms of our symbiotic relationship with technology as a whole, I'd like to provide kind of a thesis for what technology wants in the space. So it's creating this symbiotic relationship with us, and why, right? And so I'll get into data a lot. Who's extracting who, what data is coming from where's the energy flowing, where's the energy going? I always ask those big questions, right? There's a big component here that's kind of the elephant in the room with respect to religion, spirituality in the tech space. And that's what we covered before around the technological singularity, right? It's that point at which you enter a black hole, and basically the singularity in technology represents a time in which humans will transcend their own bodies, transcend biology, Some people project this to be transhumanism, where we could live forever, or project our consciousness into our mobile phones or our laptops and things like that, right? So we just have to make sure that we stay grounded in how we're approaching a lot of these more complex topics. And then the fact that we stay human centric needs to be very top of mind for all of us, right? It's this emphasis on transparency, public reporting, responsibility, the addressing of these societal risks, including what we're doing with our own data. And, I'm a huge advocate of data sovereignty for all of those reasons, and ensuring that AI technology benefits society while really being attuned to the intricacies of our human experiences, one of which is flow, that you eloquently got into in our last episode of this. So I believe if you put all of that together, flourishing in the AI era, technological evolution, keeping in mind the singularity and its complexities, and remaining human-centric, I truly believe that we can thrive in the age of AI.
So being, at the intersection of everything you just spoke about, what's the one thing that you do that has the highest leverage in terms of, striking that balance between technology and your ability to continue to flourish as a human being?
What I do personally? Yeah, it's interesting because
The listeners want to know more about Nikos.
Yeah, it's, it's the perfect intersection of everything that I've been doing for the past 30 years or so in my career. And a lot of it were fits and starts. And it has come from living and being raised in the culture of the melting pot of Silicon Valley and San Francisco. It comes from being an avid technologist. It comes from being a literary scholar into mythology and spirituality, and being religious and spiritual myself, and having interest in both Western religions and Eastern religions, that it's become kind of the culmination of everything that I'm doing, to the degree in which that I can explore this craft from a very interdisciplinary mindset, right? And it's not easy. I'm not going to say that everybody can do it, but everybody can do it. If you really, really put your mind and your heart into it, you could learn to be technical enough to be dangerous. You could sit right at the intersection of technology and spirituality and culture and analyze all of these things. You could be at the forefront yourself and build these tools, because of the fact that AI is now so democratized, and you can plug into a Llama 2 API and build on top of LangChain. And all of a sudden you have a conversational insights interface just like that. You can read as much about AI and the culture of AI and the spiritual connotations of the singularity, like a Ray Kurzweil, like a Peter Diamandis of the Singularity Foundation and University, like a Clee Irwin from quantum gravity research in Los Angeles, studying the cognitive behavior of the universe and things like that. So I would say it equates to being an awe-inspired junkie, just being a wonder junkie. Like, what is the sense of wonder that we have in this universe? What is it all about? What is my purpose? And why are we here? Right? If you could continue to just ask those big questions, then I feel like you will create the space to be on the bleeding edge of whatever it is that's going right now, that seems to be kind of right at the precipice of where humanity is going, and playing an important role in shaping our future for the better.
Okay, my dear listeners, if you're listening to the show, I highly recommend that you check out the video of this show, because as Nikos went through that, he lit up, and you probably won't be able to see it. You won't be able to see it if you're listening to the show, but he just lit up with inspiration, and I could just really capture the conviction of everything that you said. I mean, there was a lot of tech in there, right? But it was so inspiring that, it's accessible to all of us. Everyone can do this, right? It's
That's
not
right.
easy, but it can be done, right?
That's right.
And anything that's not easy is worth doing, because the benefits to that is going to be significant. Okay, so, but Neeks, one thing that gets in the way, right, is tech, right? It restrains our ability to flourish, right? And we're seeing that right now, right? I think there's no time in history that we're seeing that more than we are today, right? And I know in every age we say that, but it really I mean, you can feel it because the space is moving so fast. Yeah. So how is AI, or how is, tech restraining our ability to flourish?
That's a great question. I think if we start at the foundational level, we need to look at technology transformation as a whole, which I've been researching for a little over a decade now. And I draw a lot of inspiration from Kevin Kelly's work. And he wrote this book a while back. I don't even know what year it was because it was a while ago. It was maybe even as early as 2010. And it's called What Technology Wants. We'll also link to it here. But he separates technology, the tools that we know today, with something that's a lot broader. Technology like a screwdriver or my webcam or my laptop versus the technium. And he calls the technium more along the lines of this macro living entity that has desires and an evolutionary trajectory. So in the technium, he's including fire, he's including language, he's including the scientific method itself as kind of like this broader interconnected system that is kind of this living organism almost, right? And he suggests that the technium extends the same evolutionary processes that gave birth to humanity. It implies that there's this interconnectedness between humans and technology, and that there's also this inherent drive toward greater complexity, entropy, diversity, specialization, ubiquity, freedom, mutualism, beauty, sentience, and also a cohesive structure. And so what this vision actually underscores is the potential symbiotic relationship between humans and machines that are shaping the future. Now, why am I saying all that? To get into your question and to answer your question about limitations. And in my research, I've also discovered this other concept called Moloch, which is based on this ancient myth around a god that used to sacrifice children. And it was also a way to talk about technology's upsides and downsides, right? Moloch was this kind of big beast that had to eat and basically feast on things and created a lot of detriments to society itself, much like technology is doing today. In previous episodes, we've talked about the first battle that we had lost and we're still kind of paying for right now, which is the battle of social media. We lost that battle because not only have we been given up our data, we have been extracted, we are getting manipulated, our future behaviors are now being manipulated by technology and all of those derivatives, like we had said. There is the big problem with big tech's profit over privacy model, which I go over a lot. It's a data trade-off. So users basically exchange their personal data for digital conveniences, which leads to these privacy breaches. But we're no longer autonomous, right? Because of the continuous tracking of our actions and our preferences, this diminishes our autonomy and freedom. Now, you could pick two variations of this. One is surveillance capitalism and the other is surveillance socialism. I would say neither are good nor bad, right? But now this is exacerbated with AI's role. AI algorithms are now intensifying user biases, and it's creating information echo chambers like we discussed in the previous episode. But now there's this thing like the attention economy, such that big tech basically commodifies user attention. And now we have a lot of trust issues, right? So now the current business model, it's eroding user trust. It's bringing up a ton of these moral questions, like because of these drive for profits, it overlooks kind of much deeper ethical concerns about our dignity, our privacy, and us really owning our own data. And not only that, I kind of planted the seed before, but we need a more nuanced AI because the way that we exist and perceive things don't only exist in black or white, which is the limitation of a keyword. There's really a pressing demand for AI that respects and understands the richness of human experience without necessarily commodifying it. So those are the major limitations, and they're huge.
Yeah, they're huge. So you touched on the need for a nuanced AI, right? How does that future look like? And again, what's the impact on human flourishing if we get it right, right? And the flip side would be if we were to get it wrong, what would be the impact on human flourishing in
Yeah,
all the research that you've done?
yeah, definitely. So let me start,
What does
because I
the
know
research say?
the research says a lot, and this is both from somebody that's building these things and also understanding why we're building these things. And I don't think everybody knows. And so to make people aware, here are the limitations of binary technologies in general. And this is everything that you're doing on Google, right? Search is limited, not only because
Sorry,
yeah,
because what do you mean by, for the listeners? What do you
yeah.
mean by binary AI?
It's not just binary AI. I'm talking about the digital world is binary. Now, this is going to be a very controversial subject because it's hard to grasp, but because of the fact that the entire digital ecosystem is built on these on and off switches, it's causing many problems because of the fact that you have to go one way or another, and it's either on or off. It's either it or not it. And that's basically how the entire digital ecosystem is created by design. It reduces complexities of human experience into simple yes or no decisions, which misses the nuance of what it means to be alive. And yes, you could put things on the probabilistic, you could put things into like a probabilistic math algorithm, but you're losing everything it means to be human if you lose that spectrum, right? So on and off, we talked about it before. Beautiful, not beautiful. If I don't put the hashtag beautiful on this picture of my sunset, does it mean that it's not beautiful? No. But what about it makes it beautiful? You need to add that spectrum to it. So the richness and the spectrum of human emotions and expression and these experiences, they can't be adequately represented in binary terms. But that's essentially what Google is doing all day long, right? Is making things searchable so that when you put the keyword on there, you can search through it. But what tends to happen when you put keyword tags, optimize for SEO, and do all of the things that make you discoverable on Google, all it does is it optimizes SEO for your page, yes. But you as a user, it basically means that everybody now gets to carpet bomb you because of the fact of, the gamification of keywords has now created a ton of noise for you as a user. Not to mention all the scalability issues, right? Like binary systems are foundational for digital tech, but as data and tasks grow more complex, binary logic becomes very inefficient. Not only that, it's homogenized, right? So that same binary logic leads to homogenized results. It stifles diversity. It promotes monocultural perspectives. And this is exactly why you see what's happening on social media, where we get thrown into these buckets, right? You start talking about free speech. Oh, the algorithm says there's a 93% chance that this person is right-wing Republican, right? And it doesn't take into account any of that granularity. It becomes like absolutist. So this kind of binary thinking, and it's not just in digital, it's the problem. It's now conditioning us to do the same with our minds too, right? Is to divide things in two, which is an even bigger problem. The fact that we have this dualistic thinking, it promotes an either or mentality, which basically hinders all creative problem solving. And it inhibits the exploration of middle ground solutions, nuance, gray areas, all of the things that make art sing around the things that we just can't put our finger on. Like that's kind of where the magic happens, right? And binary logic just really breaks all of that magic, and it takes it out of the equation, which is really sad.
It's polarizing. It reminds me of what you said really resonates. In forum, we have to call out an event, a 5% event, an event that, we So 95% of things that happen in your life you discuss with family, friends, colleagues, but there's that 5%, that voice in your head that you don't discuss with anybody for a couple of reasons. One, fear of judgment. If I share this with you, you may judge me. And the second is discretion. You may tell Sally who tells Joe. And so in Forum, there's this implicit and explicit understanding and commitment to each other that we will not judge, and everything that is shared in the room stays in the room. And so we identify an event, a 5% event in our life, and we have to talk about the emotions. And the emotions is what really, it's where all the leverage is in terms of the transformation. And, if I wasn't aware of this spectrum, like you said, this binary approach, I would just say, I'm happy or I'm sad, right? But within happy, there's joy, there's contentment, there's that feeling of satisfaction, peace, love, gratitude, excitement, amusement. So hope, optimism. So someone may be able to connect with, may not be able to connect with happy, but they can connect with all these other emotions or some of them, right? Conversely, if I'm sad, well, am I feeling despair? Am I lonely? Am I melancholy? Am I disappointed? What is it, right? Because it's a spectrum, like you said. And when we don't have that spectrum and it's binary, then the ability for me to connect and really fully express myself and find that connection to other people who may be experiencing the same emotion, like I lose out on that. So I'm leaving growth on the table. I'm not able to fully maximize the experience, the event that I'm going through, because I wasn't able to express myself.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that. And you're experiencing it firsthand, right? Which is why no matter what kind of automation revolutionizes society with these chat-based therapy sessions or your personal AI assistants, I think you nailed it even as far back as episode 3 when we talked about self-help in the age of AI. It doesn't beat being in the room, as you and I even experienced while we were in the room together. I felt like I was in a mini therapy session with you, but we were just like completely in the moment and it felt really good. And it's just really hard to replicate that human nuance, right? Even with very, very high resolution virtual reality worlds and things like that. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting as more of these technologies start to come out, because their whole game is to, in fact, match the level of resolution that humanity has. And in part, that's actually what my goal is as well with some of the projects that I'm working on is achieving
Beautiful.
that high level of resolution in not just AI, but with our experience in data.
Mm. And so if we take control back the hands of the user, right? Does this give us the ability to amplify our collective wisdom of humanity?
Yeah,
Is this really the access point to collective intelligence?
I believe
Or
so.
yeah.
And yeah,
Okay,
the
well,
reason, yeah, I mean,
elaborate.
absolutely. I think it's probably the key to creating the very first GPS for all of humanity if it's done right. And it starts with foundations. You obviously first need an ethical framework, right? Unlike tech models that basically obfuscate their processes, this project, and I'll call it a research project first because it's still a little bit stealth until October, but we're calling it the Gradients Project. It's highlighting radiance and gradients, and so it basically champions transparency. It ensures users know how their data is used, and that kind of plants the seed for data sovereignty. It respects users' right to their data, promoting data agency and providing tools that control their personal information. It goes well beyond these binary systems, and it removes these binary constraints, and it offers the entire platform captures the richness of human experience from that perspective. And then it personalizes the spaces that you create within the tool so that you can basically cater to the multifaceted nature of your individual preferences. Now, why is that important for collective wisdom? It's because it leverages the power of AI to basically tap into collective human insights, curating and collecting wisdom and promoting a shared sense of growth. And it helps to utilize collaborative problem solving. So it's basically a space where users can tap into global insights. You can work together on solving complex issues that foster this type of collective intelligence. And then beyond that, I think you can start to transcend those things once you find kind of the neural pathways between all of these different connection points. And then you start to transcend and discover more things about yourself. You discover more things about society. And now we enter exactly what we talked about before, right? It becomes a tool for enlightenment. It starts to interweave technology with more spiritual pursuits, and it aids users in their quests for basically being able to individuate. That was a term used by Carl Jung, who was the famous psychologist, who talked about being able to achieve your true unique self. And it's basically a phase of personal enlightenment. And by basically focusing on the attributes that you love the most, the spaces that you create, appending data to that which you care about, and the aesthetic that you care about, the internal tools that you love the most. There hasn't been a tool for that really focuses on what you're feeling on the inside. Everything is just based on like external validation and all of those things. And so we hope that, through this project, we can create the first tool to provide fluency for your inner world. And through that, you can create kind of this education and growth and continuous learning. And all of that needs to be powered by AI. And the last piece here that's really important, it might be a little bit too deep for general audiences, but a lot of the techies will understand this. LLM architecture consists of being able to manipulate vector embeddings. The vector embeddings basically assign numbers to key phrases, and that's what they use to predict the next word. And so that's why LLMs are really good at generating new data off of next words, because it's just ingested so much data. But you need a vector embedding architecture and database to assign numbers to words and words to numbers in a vector space, so that you could basically assign probabilities to those next words. But if users can essentially...
Yep. If users, just put a bookmark on that for a moment, just for the general listeners who are not as tech inclined.
Sure.
Can you give us an example of that in action, their interaction with tech in action of that concept that you just mentioned, or that approach?
Yeah, the simple answer is when you first learned how to type on whatever word processor you were using, you would type in a sentence and the computer would give you like a puzzle. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy blank. And then you would, of course, fill that in with dog, D-O-G, right? And so what the AI is doing, or the LLM is doing, it's using what's called a vector embedding. And it's basically assigning a number to dog, or whatever would go into that blank space there. Do I use cat? Do I use fox? Do I use a giraffe? And it's basing it on how many times it's seen that sentence before. But it's probably seen that sentence before, right? The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy giraffe. No. Elephant. Have you seen that before? No. So it's assigning a probability to dog. There's a high probability that in that blank goes the word dog, right? And so that's just that's an oversimplified version, but it's able to do this with Shakespeare sonnets, every book that you've ever read, every reference that was ever on the internet. It's using a ton of data to basically create these vector embeddings so that it would predict the next word. Now, why am I getting into vector embeddings? The reason is because you as a user, you don't create your own vector embeddings, and you don't even create your own data. But the power of this is such that with this platform, you should be able to basically train your AI to cater to your own preferences, your own personalization, your own attributes, the things that you care about the most. And our suggestion, my vision for the future, it's a prediction, but I'm also really aiming to implement it, is that a user should not only be able to create their own data, but train their own AI with the things that they love the most, with their own preferences. And they need to be able to do this at the vector embedding level. Very deep. Yeah.
Very deep, but I think the example that you gave, the technique, is being used across many different facets, right? I mean, you
Yes.
gave a very simple example, but then you spoke about sonnets and Shakespeare and everything else that we do on the internet. But what really caught my ear, and I'm sure listeners caught this as well. What do you mean by you're not even creating data? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Simple. Nobody, you're creating data. Let me take that back a little bit. You are creating data, but you're not creating it for yourself. Every
Yeah.
time you post something on Instagram, every time you write a blog, every time you put a hashtag on something on TikTok, especially TikTok, that is not your data. The platforms own that data, especially the ones that you are not paying a subscription for and are using for free. And that's because every time you use a browser, every time you click on something that you're interested in, every time you enter something in a search box, every time you enter something into ChatGPT, you are creating data that the algorithms are using, and you don't own any of it. You are basically giving your DNA, which is, I do believe data is your DNA. That's a part of you. It's part of your intent. It's part of your behavior. And in the digital world, we are creating our own DNA, right? The way that we are changing our DNA as we exist. We're changing our DNA because of the foods that we eat. If I decide to eat bacon every single day for the rest of my life, my DNA is going to change. If I go on a
Don't do it.
plant-based diet, that has very different implications, right? That's why you have to pick and choose what's going to change your DNA for the better. In the digital world, we are constantly creating data on behalf of others. The big platforms, Insta, Meta, TikTok, X, Threads, you name it. Every time you create content, you're at the behest of these platforms. And yes, you're creating data, but just none of it you own. It's just owned 100% by the other platforms, unfortunately.
Nikos, that's very clear. Now, let's talk about the path forward, right? What is the path to flourishing in the age of big tech, in the age of the fact that, we don't own our data and we don't have sovereignty over our data, and it's limiting our ability to really fully express ourselves in the ways that you defined it, right?
Yeah.
So how do we go from a non-binary state to a more full spectrum approach, right? So what is that path to flourishing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first quick answer is to basically stay tuned to our show, because that's kind of what my personal mission is to do, and that's to basically free humanity of this impoverishment of data, and to get into this new era of data sovereignty. So I think the easy thing to do is to stay tuned. But if you want to know kind of some quick hits and kind of what to do today, it's really being more aware of all of these flaws that, we mentioned right now. And that's really to be a lot more intentional about prioritizing human value over how your data is being captured, and just be aware of how the big tech platforms are doing this. And so, we're definitely offering an alternative to this profit over privacy model that plagues a lot of these tech giants. But it's really also about promoting general healthy digital interaction, non-addictive, non-anxiety ridden, and really just encouraging meaningful connections and content, and moving away from this divisive and polarizing type of algorithmic approach, right? And then, like you said, preparing the future with empowering the next generation. And so think about what forward thinking design is in this world, where it's preparing users for a future where AI plays an integral role, ensuring that they're not just passive consumers, but active shapers of this new landscape. That's how you could be proactive today, right? And so it's really a bigger vision of where this harmonious integration of AI and humanity ushers this new age of enlightenment, prosperity, and really flourishing for all. And how does that impact society? It impacts society in really big ways, right? I go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I think Peter Diamandis did a reinvention of that, and he calls it the abundance pyramid, which we're also linking to. And this is a conceptual framework of Maslow's hierarchy of needs that represents a progression from basic survival necessities to more complex, higher level needs. But he breaks it up in how AI could basically support these needs, right? The physiological needs are food, water, and shelter. So AI in agriculture is just one example of how advanced machine learning can predict crop yields, optimize irrigation, reduce pesticide use, leading to sustainable farming and things like that. Water management. How can AI predict water shortages, optimize water distribution, increase alkaline sustenance, and then, of course, desalinate our oceans so that you can basically purify water for billions and billions of people. And then now this starts to percolate into smart housing. And then a layer up from that, you have safety needs. So personal security, economic security, things that really are needed for human flourishing. So predictive policing. So when it comes to ethical challenges, AI can analyze patterns and predict crime hotspots, sort of like that Minority Report example. Economic forecasting. AI can provide deeper insights into economic trends, helping policymakers make informed decisions to ensure stability and predict financial crises. And then, of course, everything that we are so avidly passionate about in the show, health and well-being, AI in healthcare, from diagnosing diseases with greater accuracy to personalized medicine based on one's genetics, mental well-being, which we're very avid about here, staying spiritual, staying meditative, having really strong mental health is really good. And then, of course, relationships and emotional connection. Virtual assistants in AI can help individuals combat loneliness, while AI platforms can connect people with similar interests or provide therapeutic interactions. And then, most of all, we want to be understood, right? So having knowledge and understanding, and then this component of self-actualization, like the ability to discover yourself by going inward and dialing into the things that you love the most. And that's just synthesizing everything that we know right now. And I know that was a lot, but anybody can participate if you are avid and passionate about any of those things. AI is going to boost your creativity. It's going to aid in pushing the boundaries of your creativity. So participate, whatever your tool or talent is. We highly encourage everybody to do it and to start using these tools today.
Beautiful. So as we wrap up this conversation on human flourishing, we want to leave you with a thought that's worth carrying forward. Remember that the journey toward flourishing is not a destination. It's a lifelong adventure. And life will throw challenges and opportunities your way, and what brings you fulfillment might evolve over time. So the approach, I mean, Nikos mentioned a lot of different things to do and to consider, but a lot of what he mentioned are the foundations. They're the basics. So we have to continue to embrace change because, a lot of these things are challenging. It's going to take a high level of energy and self-awareness to be able to adapt to change, right? So it's essential for us to embrace change, stay curious, and keep exploring what makes your heart sing. Ultimately, your path to human flourishing is unique and it's beautiful. So that ongoing process of self-discovery and growth. So don't be afraid to dream big, be resilient in the face of adversity, and always, 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 always strive to lead a life that truly resonates with values and aspirations, right? Now, as you continue on your journey, you may find happiness, you may find meaning, you may find well-being, and you may seek, your life to be a testament to this incredible potential that you have, that human spirit. So thank you for joining us today, my dear friends. And remember, your pursuit of human flourishing is remarkable
And it's an inspiring story in the making. Keep thriving, keep flourishing, stay emergent, stay curious. And we look forward to having you join us in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Emergence Now, where we explore the emerging trends, technologies, and ideas that are shaping our world today for you to discover yourself. We hope you enjoyed this episode and gained valuable insights that you can apply in your own life. If you want to stay up to date with our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media, where we share additional content, engage with our community, and keep the conversation going. Thanks again for listening to Emergence Now, and we hope you'll join us for the next episode.